Okay, this is Monet, and we're going to try our best to do Water Lily Pond in watercolors, and then we're going to use gray acrylic to do the bridge. I've already drawn my bridge on. I would suggest having moms go ahead and do that unless you have the older kids and really want to let them do that. So I'm just going to try my best to follow the instructions, and the first thing I'm going to do is put, now my water is still a little stained from the previous thing I did, but just some water on my, not too much because I don't want to cause the paper to absorb so much, but go ahead and put some water down here. And I've got water in my watercolor cakes. You want to definitely make sure that you have a rag, because when you're using watercolors, it's really important to dab and not have too much water absorbed in the paper. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of do that. All right, so this is my water. And now we'll come back to it in a minute. I'm going to kind of let it start to dry while I do the back. My water is now turning green because I have some blue in it. So I'm going to put my water on it. This is watercolor paper, which is more expensive, but it does better when you're using actual watercolors. All right, now I'm going to do a little bit of green. Again, you don't want your brush to be too wet. So if you get too much green, just dab. You can see me dabbing over here, but dab it on your towel. You can always add more, but you can't take that water away once it gets in there. It's really hard. All right, and then I'm going to add some yellow because we got some yellow throughout here. And you can use the top of your watercolor set to mix colors. And I'm going to show you what you can do once it's dried some too, to come back and give it some more definition. Okay, so that's the top. Feeling pretty good. That's all covered. I can still see the outline of my bridge. So I'm going to go through now and do some more on the bottom. And when you're doing this, it should have dried. You want to use very minimal water at all on your brush. So I'm going to almost wipe all of it off. It's going to seem like I'm wiping all of it off. And I'm just going to kind of come through and do some little dark sections. My brush is almost dried completely now, so that when I go through to do these dark sections, it's not spreading out. It's staying in that one little area because it's just kind of dried paint. All right, and I'm going to go through with the green and kind of do some things. I don't like the color of green that I've got, so I'm going to try to add some brown to it and make it a little darker. To me, it just doesn't look natural. It looks like an emerald green. I don't want emerald green. So I'm going to go through and do a little, this is kind of where the lily pads are in here. It wouldn't be a lily pond without lily pads. Now our lilies are not going to be white because it's really hard to do white unless you wanted to get an acrylic and come back and do it. Oops, see, too much water right there. This is really important to stress to the kids. You cannot have too much water. It just doesn't look right. So you can go around the edge of the patty cake, of the watercolor cake too, and it should be kind of dry there, and get some of that on your brush. I'm not getting in the wet part, I'm just getting on the dry part, and that'll make it a darker color too. All right, I'm going to get a little more over here. I feel kind of like that didn't get much. All right, there's even some yellow. I don't know how well this is going to work, but I'm going to try it. Oh yeah, that turned out good. A little yellow here and there. Again, I'm getting along the edges of the watercolor cake, and you're going to have to walk your student through this as they do it so that they'll kind of know. A lot of them probably haven't ever used watercolor like this before. I'm just going to show you the edges, not the center where the water is. You don't want that. You want the edges where it's dried almost. And you can kind of press your brush down so that it's flat. Okay, so I feel good about this. You can just kind of keep adding if you want. I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to come back up to the top, and I'm going to do the same with the top and the green. And the yellows, I'm going to add some little bit of brown to my green. Like I said, I think it needs a little bit darkening, and just kind of, they have some, looks like maybe like a willow or something. And kind of behind the, I probably shouldn't have done that in the center because odds are there's not a tree right there that you can adjust when you're doing it with your class. In the actual picture, it's over here to the side. He's got something that kind of looks like, almost like it would be a willow hanging down. Yeah, I think. Definitely don't put it in the center. But for my example, it's fine. Do a little, over in this section, it's kind of dark looking in his picture. I don't know what, if it's just shadows or what. And you know, we're not Monet, and the Lord gave him a gift that he probably didn't give to many of our students. But it definitely makes them appreciate appreciate the gift that God gave these artists when they try themselves to replicate them, and see how very difficult it is. I want to add a little water up here to kind of mix that a little bit better. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm going to go through and add some flowers. And his are kind of purplish and pink looking. I do have purple and I do have pink on my watercolor pads. Again, you want to dab that brush. You don't want too much. You can always come back in and add more water, but you can't take water away as easily. Also has some yellow ones, kind of. I don't know that yellow's gonna work too well for us, but we'll try it. All right, now I'm gonna use just red. That was kind of a mixture of purple and red together. Now I'm gonna use just red and see what I get. See if I can just kind of beside them a little. They're in clusters, it looks like. So if you do some of a mixture, both red and purple, and then some that are just red and some that are just purple, that should look really pretty. Just lightly dabbing my brush. Okay, and I'm gonna go back with just the purple and do the same. This is very dry brush. I hardly have any paint on it, or any water on it rather, just mostly paint. Okay, so I'm gonna call that good for now, and I'm gonna go through and show you how we're gonna do the bridge. So for the bridge, I am actually using acrylic, and so I've got some gray acrylic here, and I'm gonna I want my brush to be kind of flat when I do this, so I'm gonna do like that. And I can just barely see where my bridge was. A thinner brush might have been better, but that's okay, because the kids might not have a thinner brush. Okay, so there's the bottom of my bridge. Just gonna do the same thing with the top. It doesn't have to look exact because this was a watercolor painting, so it wasn't real defined looking. It was more of a mystic look to it. Actually, turn a little bit. See if I can get it. All right, I'm going to go through and do the rails in between. And that will be the end of Monet. All right. Oh, there's the center one. Let me do that next, actually. It's thinner. Mine's not going to look very much thinner. Talk to the kids about just one smooth brush stroke. And then I can barely see where it's just kind of there. It doesn't even have to be complete. You want the second one, the one that's farther back, to be a little bit smaller. It's just that rail in the back. If you can make that happen. And so, there is our example of